And this is basically one of the many passages that I have been reading here over the years concerning the coming of Russia. All the arrows are here that we can just tick all the boxes. A nation that I, the Lord, meaning God will call these people, God will call this coalition. God is going to be the primary driver in the hearts of these people to have them so fed up with America. At the time with America live streaming sex in the streets and whatever else that will be happening here, other nations will be looking and saying, you know what, I don't think that this nation actually needs to be a part of the international nations. Many people will be disgruntled with America, even more than we currently have. And so Yah says, I will bring the nation. Then he tells us where the nation is coming from afar. America is a very great distance away from Russia. Very great distance away from Russia, to the point that Russia is going to actually use Canada at the top of America as an entry point, a foot soldier entry point to bring troops down through Canada. That's one of the things that's going to happen. Then, no matter what America puts on the TV, Russia couldn't do this and Russia hasn't been able to do this with Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine are in a dummy war. No matter what you think, Vladimir Putin is simply testing the boundaries of conquest. Because this is not the age where you could just saddle up your horse and go ride like Napoleon and just conquer places. You can't do that. It breaks 1,000 international laws and treaties. So what he is doing is, Yah has said in the older prophecies that this man is simply testing the boundaries of tolerance. In the modern world, if I go up against Ukraine, what's going to happen? Is anything going to happen? Okay. If something happened, what is going to happen? How bad will it be? Will it be a sanction, or will it actually be weapons? Or will it just be talk? And Putin has had at least 2 years now to see that it's mostly talk with sanctions, and the sanctions are not strong enough to stop that man being the international Barbie doll that he has become. The sanctions haven't stopped his money. The sanctions haven't stopped his trade. The sanctions have not dented his popularity, his global popularity at all. He is the man of the moment. Everybody is like, come here. Everybody's like, photo op, shake my hand. They all want to be near him. They all want to be seen next to him. And because Putin is wearing the godly cologne of it now being his time. It is not Donald Trump's time. It is not Joe Biden's time or anyone else's time. It is the time of the new axis that is rising. And so the flavor of God and the scent of God is on those people. They are doing what he said in the 2019 prophecy, which is called flowering. Flowering is when you notice your niece for the first time has grown up into this beautiful young woman and you can't stop complimenting her. You've seen her many Christmas swarming all over your major centers of warfare. This last part is simply referring to the fact that the Russians know where all of the American military camps are, and at the moment that people least expected, those command centers, I guess Fort Bragg and Fort Greene and all the various forts, the places where the U.S. soldiers are in their barracks, places that are restricted in every part of the country, Yah says that the Russians are going to swarm over those places in a surprise attack, and even the soldiers in the forts are going to be surprised. And here it is. The next thing that I'm reading is this. Soldiers in the army are Russian and also Russian sympathizers. They will rise up inside the U.S. barracks and overpower the soldiers lying next to them with nerve gas, fizzing gas in the barracks, and slitting the throats of people who are sleeping next to them in an attempt to silence them, before slipping out of the barracks to do things like take over the General Army Command Center or signal the ones who are waiting outside of the camp that it is time to come in. And then what I saw was, I just saw all the men sleeping. And the way that God distinguished them was like all the soldiers, it was time for bed, and all the soldiers went in and they settled down, and then eventually the whole barracks went to sleep. Now in the dead of night, some men, they sat up. They sat up, and I don't know if soldiers sleep ready with their shoes on or their shoes off, but these men were just ready. They had that long, the camouflage coat that is buttoned up on top for army, and they had their shoes on in bed, which is strange, but they were ready, and they sat up and they reached down and they took those masks that have the big eyes, the gas mask. You know how they have that big eyes that look like ants when they put that on? They put this thing on, and then they pulled stuff and they threw it, and it began to fizz. I guess because this is a vision God wants me to see, it began to fizz a very stink bomb looking green thing, and it was nerve gas, and the people inside the barracks began to die. That was one image that I saw. Another image that I saw is that more soldiers than just one or two in a barracks sleeping place, more soldiers than just one or two sat up in bed. And some of them were not the kind of person that you can call Russian or whatever. Some of them were black. Some of them were black. All different types of American soldiers. These were what God was calling American sympathizers. People who, they're in the army, but there is a word, they're no longer fooled by the lies of the U.S. Army. So a man gets in and he's in for a 5-year stretch. We've spoken about sympathizers. There's sympathizers in the White House. There's sympathizers in the office of the president who sympathize with outside governments. There's sympathizers throughout all of American society. People who have ideas that if they went to an American barbecue and they shared those ideas, everyone at the barbecue would hate them and call them a commie or a socialist or this or that. They would despise them. But yet these are people who have seen America's imprint internationally and become unenamored, no longer in love with the country. Basically, if that kind of person is a Snowden and information comes into their hands, they are going to reveal it to outside forces and say, yes, come in, we deserve this and we deserve that. Whether that is unpatriotic or just, I wish this word would come to me, they just become jaded.